Alright, hello, welcome to Ben's OP Game Show, recorded live at 3 p.m. Pacific Time every Friday, right here on twitch.tv/thegamefanatics. And on this week's show, it's all about Nioh. Literally every second is about Nioh. We're not even gonna bother with any more preamble or whatever. I even forgot to update some things. I'm blaming my special guest for this. Sorry, and I mess everything up. He's a self-proclaimed digital desperado with a chip on his shoulder and an extensive amiibo collection. Also, he's now arrested for making me say shoulder. And a newly made editor for thegamefanatics.com. Tyler's here. Show up now, please.
I cannot believe you brought me out of the show just so you could pin a crime on me.
I know. Well, I forgot I should read this beforehand so that I understand how to read, but I didn't do that.
Read
That's my
something
bad.
ahead of time so you know how
No,
to read.
no.
I knew deep reading was becoming a dying art, but
It
my
is.
goodness.
Man, I mean, you sent me these words. They're really tiny on my notepad screen. It's not a good time. But let's start off actually staying focused with Nioh, the big, super amazing release. Well, amazing might be editorializing here a little bit, but I know I had a ton of experience with Alpha and the Beta and the Last Chance Trial, probably about 20 hours between all of them. And I know you did as well. Tell me a little bit about your experience with the pre-release stuff.
Well, Ben, I actually had some very ambivalent feelings about Nioh when the alpha build came out, believe it or not.
Interesting.
Like, at first, I liked the idea of it being a Souls-like, I suppose, using Japanese flavored weapons and demons, but it felt like it definitely wasn't in the right mix of. It didn't have a proper voice to it yet. Like I remember the alpha build,
Mm-hmm.
it had weapon durability. You
Oh,
actually
yeah.
had weapons break down. You had to use items to repair them, and my experience with samurai-like games have always been ones of it aired a bit more on realism or verisimilitude with the stuff like the Way of the Samurai uh, games. Like Way of the Samurai 2 on the PS2 is one of my favorite, like, underappreciated games of that generation. And that had extensive weapon durability, and it reinforced this sort of samurai idea of not blocking your with your sword all the time because those things are brittle as glass.
Yeah.
And I remember that being in the alpha build, but then they have this action-focused style with these demons, and I'm like, this is kind of interesting, but the balance was all off, so I was kind
That's
of turned off.
like that's really interesting to me. And there's another big thing they changed besides the durability. The biggest change from the alpha to now is definitely how they handle stamina or ki. In that you could be attacking and you'd run out of ki and you'd do that low stance, I'm recovering, huff and puff, which now only happens if you're hit into that state, which is a huge change to from what it was. But as opposed to your experience here, I played this alpha almost a year ago now at this point, and I loved it. I fell in love with it almost immediately. It was one of those things where I talk about, I talk about like people know me, but I love The Legend of Zelda, and like Ocarina of Time is what got me into gaming. And then the next game series after that, that made me remember those nostalgic feelings. Felt like how I was playing Zelda back in the day when it was so many firsts for me was Demon Souls. And Nioh was the first game since those games that made me have that same learning curve and exploring the environment, all these things like learning mechanics, actually learning mechanics, which is something that does not happen really in any other game now. Like learning new mechanics and how to play a game, that doesn't happen when you play games almost every day, right? So I loved it. I loved it. It's funny that you have
My
such a
problem with
different
that
experience.
is,
Yeah.
my problem is the issue of tutorialization
Hmm.
and the ability to allow for exploration and understanding to happen naturally by the player. Like you said so yourself, a lot of games are heavily tutorialized now. And from a modern perspective, I understand why that happens. Games are a lot more widespread now, and games are a lot more complex now. Like it feels weird because we are very clearly people that have played games habitually. We have all
Hmm.
this literacy indoctrinated and ingrained in us that we don't think of it that way. But a lot of games are
Yes.
very complicated now, and the trick is trying to find a way to have that information impressed upon a player without either patronizing them, which does happen with certain RPGs, because we've all had that one game that they just say, here's your tutorial, 7, 8, 9 blocks of text to tell you how to move, punch, and kick, and then they say, okay, you know everything, and they get rid of it. Or they don't tell you jack, and you have to figure it out all on your own.
Yeah.
And I feel as if Nioh's, the alpha build at least,
Mm-hmm.
was trying to think similar to that. And I did like what they were trying to do, like the ability, like I noticed how they had the particle effects every time you did a combo, and sort of almost visually kind of giving the idea that there's some sort of rhythm to the combat. And speaking personally, this is why I actually did kind of like a bit of the alpha before the balance issues messed me up. I actually have years of sword training. I actually have an extensive history in martial arts and in weapon disciplines. And so when it came to, taking your time and, trying to focus yourself and maintain a rhythm and balance to yourself while fighting, that was very martial arts philosophy. So when they had that with the key pulses introduced in the alpha and switching up the stances, I thought that was brilliant. But then once again, there was just some balance issues here and there, and it felt, once again, the durability was at odds. Like it felt like it was trying to be almost a realistic game, almost like Bushido Blade. But then it goes from that, and then it's trying to be an action-heavy thing like the Ninja Gaiden games, and I felt there was a disconnect there. But the beta, on the other hand, I thought was a step in the right direction. The inner my inner warrior, I guess you want to call it, was a little bit miffed that they got rid of durability, because now I can just block, that giant demon's hammer attack nonstop with a katana and be like, yeah, this is fine. Yeah, this is totally completely realistic at all.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. Oh yeah, totally.
This is a real footage from Japan.
Break through the sword and just kill me.
Yeah, well, in the beta, they also introduced the tutorial, and they kind of told you some things. Like the key pulse was not even mentioned really at all in the alpha. They started kind of breaking it down.
Yeah, they had to figure that out, and I did like that. I did actually like this dojo you went to with the wooden sword, and you got your feet wet, because it's a serviceable form of tutorialization. Like this is a problem I do have. Like too many games either try to cater to the more hardcore audience, guys like us, and keep it light. Like this already. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Or they try to appeal to everybody, and that can go wrong too. Like everybody remembers how annoying it was to deal with Fi in The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword.
Yes.
All of the tutorials.
You don't want to swing the other way.
To get that right.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, it's very tricky to get that right.
Tutorials are tough, and especially if you look at the Souls games to compare it more directly. Like Demon Souls had this little tutorial area that essentially is just made to kill you, which is kind of mean. And then Dark Souls has its own little area to teach you mechanics of like, this is what a trap might look like. This is plunging attacks. We're going to show you how this works because you have to do it here on this boss. It does a nice way of doing that. And this game too, in the final release, has its own little section where it locks away certain abilities. You can't do them in the little tutorial prison area, and then does the dojo. It does a nice job of layering it all on, which is something that was missing. Yeah. I'm just watching my gameplay now. Entranced. Okay. And the other thing was
that's fine.
was the last chance trial, which is something very strange, and not to get into like the review territory, but I don't understand why they picked a level so late in the game. I haven't beaten the game yet, and have you beaten the game, Tyler?
I'm listening.
Have you beaten the game yet?
That's actually a thing I do. I will have to put a pin in, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
I'm about 45 hours into a playthrough of Nioh. I'm not near the end, but I can definitely feel that the game is coming to a head. I can definitely feel like I'm in somewhere resembling the third act.
Yeah.
But I definitely really do believe I've played just enough of the game to give my personal and proper and informed opinion about it. So yes, my review's live. Yes, I didn't finish it.
No, I don't think you need to beat the game, especially a game like this. Like, if you've played 40 hours or something and you really like it, I doubt it's going to change in that last 20. It's really not a big deal. My more issue was talking about, like, the last chance trial, which had that water lily level, which is at the end. Like, I'm just getting to that level now, and I don't know how many. I'm almost 30 hours into the game, which I think I'm playing probably faster than you, but I don't know. It's different play styles. It's
Well,
it's just weird they
we'll get
picked
to
that
that in a
level.
bit.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a bit because we play the game completely differently. Uh, but I really enjoy what they did with
Yeah,
these
like
trials, all three of them, which is excessive, but it's nice to see, especially with all the changes they made, specifically from the alpha to the beta to the
and that's
final
something I
one.
can't. And that's something I did like about Team Ninja did. I did like that about that. They actually had, they took feedback and they actually listened. Like this is
Hmm.
something I do find really annoying about certain games that do have these betas and these online tests. They're not. They don't feel like betas. They're just network stress tests. When I think of a
Yeah,
beta build, I think
yeah.
of something that's not ready to go yet, and they're looking for widespread feedback so they can tweak and change it. But like I said before, this game changed quite dramatically
Oh yeah.
from its initial build, and I'm glad they took the feedback from this because I mean, you mentioned history with Team Ninja. Didn't you say like you played some of their other stuff?
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of the Ninja Gaiden games. Specifically, I was mainly starting with 2 and 3. I really enjoyed 3. A lot of people don't like Ninja Gaiden 3, but I love Ninja Gaiden 3, especially Sigma. Those games are phenomenal. This
Mhm.
Nioh marries like two of kind of like my favorite I types of games, the Souls games, and then the
All right.
Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, Ninja Gaiden type of games. It kind of perfectly. So I'm down. You know, I'm a Team Ninja fan for no reason. It's just Ninja Gaiden.
All right. All right. Well, that's what happened. That's kind of the exact opposite for me. Like,
Hmm.
I enjoy some very action focused RPGs and action focused action games. Like I'm a big fan of Platinum Games' work. You know, Vanquish, Bayonetta, Metal Gear Rising. I
Hmm.
enjoy those very fast, reflex intensive games, and yet for some reason I never really got into any of the more recent Ninja Gaidens that Team Ninja's put out. The stuff I've only played from them was Dead or Alive 5, which was okay. It was a pretty okay fighting game with a lot of TNA. Other than that, I really didn't have much of a history with them, and it seemed that they were focusing way too much on a particular demographic with Dead or Alive. And I thought, okay, these guys have clearly lost their touch as an action studio. I have no idea why people enjoy their stuff. No offense, hopefully none taken. But then I got to Nioh and I'm like, oh, they're taking clues, they're taking hints, and they're putting their own spin on it. Like I actually double checked with the director, the guy who's accredited with Nioh, Ko Shibazawa, and I looked at his philosophy for why he goes into game development. He says he always wants to bring the uniqueness that is Japanese culture and Japanese philosophy when it comes to his games, and do so in a way that's more than just a superficial surface level. And that in mind, I think that's why I really have enjoyed Nioh a bit more than the likes of the Soulsborne series, which is really bizarre because in some ways the Hidetaka Miyazaki's Dark Souls and Bloodborne games are a lot more creative because it's more of an original idea, as opposed to Ko and Team Ninja basically taking a lot from Japanese myth. And yet it's that very exotic. I guess this can easily be read as Western exoticism of the East, but it's that Japanese flavor that I think really does help it stand out.
Well, it's such a milieu that doesn't even happen. Like we so seldom do we get outside of Dynasty Warriors. How many other games are set in Japan in such a way that is very Japanese? Like there's Persona, but that's completely different Japan. This is feudal Japan in a way we've never really seen it. This is, and also how many Dark Souls games have we had? 3, and Demon Souls and Bloodborne. Like it's so nice to get out of that flavor. Even though Bloodborne's a little different, it's so nice to see a new take, a new coat of paint on it.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, there's Hyperlight Drifter, which you've told me is good.
It's really
Uh,
good, but that's completely like 2D, completely different. We mentioned Salt and Sanctuary before we were
um,
talking about it. That's more
I really
Castlevania
do
y.
enjoy Solid Sanctuary.
Yeah, no, like the game's fantastic,
More
but
Castle, more.
definitely the setting is
Oh,
Castlevania.
oh dear me! Very talented studios there. I actually did an interview with them so many years. I think so many years ago, and they are just the nicest group. And they really did own, up to taking inspiration from the likes of Castlevania and
Hmm.
Dark Souls, both taking their own take on it, which is a lot more than what I could say for Lords of the Fallen.
Yes, which I mean, it's just not very good. And that might be the bad. Did actually
Yeah,
released
no.
about 15 minutes of footage of their new game today, and I watched a little bit of it. I don't think they've learned the lesson.
Oh yeah, that sci-fi looking kind of mech
Yeah, I
fighter.
forget what it's called, like the Purge, or it has like some 2 word name like that. It's not the Purge, but it's something like that. I don't know. No.
But 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 yeah, actually going back to the betas of Nioh,
Yes.
the working in progress builds, I do enjoy once again their attention to detail and how much they have taken feedback and listened to people, because this game very clearly evolved over time, and that was also a great bit of marketing. Because
Oh yeah.
think about that, I didn't really hear a whole lot about Nioh, and it's only out of curiosity that I gave the alpha a play, because it's an alpha. What else am I going to do? And
It's
they
free.
and they incentivized it with DLC. Like there's a special DLC you got if you played and beat certain levels of the beta and alpha builds, and they're basically undeletable like items you can just keep with you. It's sort of like a badge of honor. I thought that's cool. You
Yeah, it
know,
was a very smart marketing, because if they had just released this game, even if they had released this version and not just the alpha version, any version of this game without the alpha or the beta or the last chance, completely different stories. Like, this is a game that might not have had a day one review at IGN. Like, it could have just been kind of missed, or weeks later that happens, because it's a niche thing. This is, I mean, Team Ninja, what was the last good, like, amazing game Team Ninja made? I couldn't even tell you. Ninja Gaiden 2 was the
I
last
really
one
couldn't tell
everyone.
you.
Yeah, like, they've been kind of shit in the bed for a while, and they come out with this, and they come out with, we're going to give you a taste, we're going to change it, we're showing that we're
Dear.
really involved. We get to the beta, we get to the last chance, and it's like, they know what they're doing. And they, especially with the last chance, was like 2 weeks before release. That was super smart to
It
get
showed a
that.
lot of humility.
Oh yeah, they this whole game is humility really from them. Like, we know we've been bad. We're gonna take the time with this one and really do something. Like, they took the Souls formula and added a ton to it. And I think maybe we should just move into talking about the full game at this point, because I think I could speak
The
for you.
retail,
Yeah, the
yeah, the
retail
retail
release.
version.
I'm gonna speak for you a little bit. The game's really good. I think we can agree. The game is pretty damn good, right?
A lot of the risks they had for putting the builds out to this retail release really did pay off.
Yes.
Like, I wish studios understood the value of demos a bit more and having the players have a chance to have a taste of it, because you get situations like this. Because if you market it well and do it well enough, you have yourself an underground hit. Like, up to the launch of Nioh, like, as great as it would have been for Tecmo Koei to provide us with a review copy, I actually had to go out and get a copy of the game myself. And because it was so under the radar, I could barely find a box copy.
Yeah.
Just a little story I got to bring
Well,
up.
I mean,
Like,
even
nobody was
like,
expecting this game to take off. Nobody was expecting.
yes, exactly. I pre-ordered the game at Best Buy, like, online, because of the Gamers Club Unlocked, but I couldn't store pickup. Like, I had to have it shipped. I couldn't go get it because they didn't give my store copies. Like, that's how this game works. And they're even now having shortages. Like, people can't find it. Anecdotal, but still, I'm sure it's definitely doing
That's really
way more
sad
than they
because,
thought. Yeah.
yeah, like that happened to me in a certain level as well. Like, I actually have like a couple of stores I go to. Like, I do everything I can not to go to GameStop. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
GameStop for warts and all, but I have this very nice sort of smaller chain store I go to as well to pick up my stuff. And they're usually very good. They're very competitive with GameStop, and I like to reward that. But they didn't get any copies of Nioh at all. Nobody, like, the retailers, like, they were expecting a low turnout, then suddenly
Mm-hmm.
boom. And then I had to go to GameStop, and they only had like maybe 3 copies at best. And I'm like, whoa, something happened here.
Yeah, something. It's so nice to see, though, especially when there's always the hey, look at this screenshot of 30 copies of some dumb game they sent to the store. Like every store has 50 copies of this. Haha, look what they did. But it's nice to see the reverse of that.
There are copies shipped, and then there's copies sold, and then there is the demand for more copies once those
Yeah.
copies get sold. Like
At least
we don't.
we have digital stuff now. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, but at the same time, I like when it comes to certain games like this, I like having it on disc so I can loan it out to friends.
Oh, me too. I'm a big physical disc
I
copy.
mean,
Yeah.
like for me, like I have a sort of like price point and data size kind of thing. Like if it's below a certain amount of gigabytes or below a certain price, I'll get it digitally. I don't care. But certain things I like to have on disc, certain things I like to have on physical media. But back to the actual game itself, you
Yes.
mentioned how the tutorialization went really well, and that's what I really did love a lot when it came to the opening of Nioh, where it starts you off in the Tower of London, and the game plays like a Souls-like, an
Mhm.
action RPG. It's you get a weapon, you get armor, you attack. It's the most basic form of tutorialization, and I feel as if they did a good job with that because Team Ninja they didn't directly imitate From Software's Dark Souls. They didn't leave it all to messages you could easily skip or forget because people do that. They kept
Yeah.
it to text. They kept it to voiceover. They gave you the video gamey like prompts so you knew what you were doing. And then once you basically got through the first boss, I will admit that's where things got very clunky for me because then it goes to a text crawl about how your character read about the greatness of the mystical
Oh
East
yeah.
and just somehow managed to internalize all of this mystic mumbo jumbo about guardian
I
spirits and
became a
key
samurai because
pulsing, and
I
I'm like,
read a book, right?
apparently he's a very good reader. Like
Yeah,
I will,
right.
and for me, I couldn't really call that to be a bad thing. Like I I'm merciless when it comes to word economy and information density when it comes to video game narrative and video game dialogue and video game vocabulary because you have only so many words. You better be using them properly. And I just found it to be kind of funny that they just dedicated an entire like prologue paragraph to explaining how this foreigner how to use a Kusarigama. I'm like whatever. But the way they did it, though, also sold the tone of it, which I mentioned before we started the stream. The tone of Nioh was really weird. Like, on the one hand, I feel like this might be Team Ninja's best storytelling to date, and even then, it's unremarkable. It's very remarkably cheesy and camp. Like, you brought this up. I brought this up before. This game borrows heavily from Japanese culture, and I'm not just talking about the monster designs. This is based in historical truths. This is actually set in the Sengoku era, the Sengoku Jidai, the Warring States, the time of warring warlords and nobles and the like, and horrible conflict. And your character is actually based off of William Adams, who is historically the world's first Western samurai who traveled and became an assistant to Tokugawa Ieyasu. And I'm like, that's neat. You have all this historical stuff, and then you get to like the stuff that happens with the plots in the beginning, where it's about this evil guy that's working for Queen Elizabeth that's trying to steal the energy of Japan to create eternal life so they can destroy the heathens of Japan. I'm like, this is a comic book villain.
Like this doesn't fit in with the rest, but okay.
This is so silly. And then you have and then of course you have the more overt stuff like the 15-foot high Oni and the Japanese monsters you fight, like you mentioned the blob creature, the Umibozu, the giant
Yes.
sentient water monster. You have the Jirogumo, the Spider Woman demon, the giant's poisonous centipede monster with the detachable body parts, the Yuki Onna, the ice spirit woman. Like, it is so unabashedly Japanese. I kept getting enthralled with it, and it was also fun how they remixed certain ideas, and I liked how they kind of moved you into it while also kind of selling the tone of this. Like, one of the silliest things that still cracks me up is a cutscene they had right where you fight the main boss, the first boss, and there's a cutscene where William like leaps off the tower into the water to go and get to his boat so the game can start. When I
Yeah.
finished that, he was in full plate mail knight armor and wielding a
Oh yeah.
giant two-handed sword. He jumps in, I'm like, and that's where he dies.
I know. They just completely skip it. Like, oh, now he's going on a journey. He somehow swam in 200 pounds of armor. Don't care. He just swam to his boat and he made it out alive. Okay, doesn't explain anything.
He swam to his boat and then sailed for 2 years, and nothing else bad happened to him. And he's amazing. Like, well, if he has that much strength to swim in full plate armor,
I guess, yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Like, it's that camp vibe to it, and I do mean that lovingly. That
it has fun with
this.
itself. Like, it has like the first cutscene with the little cat spirit you get is like cutesy, and he does his little nya sounds, and you're like, it's having fun. It's definitely more lighthearted than the actual Warring States period would kind of normally allow.
And yet at the same time, the setting doesn't feel like set dressing. Like there's a level where you actually go to Honnoji Temple, where Nobunaga Oda was betrayed. They actually focus on those parts, and I do think that gives its own special kind of vibe to it. It's like, okay, this is set in wartime. How much worse can this get? Oh wait, let's have supernatural, vengeful spirits and monsters show up as a response to all the death and destruction and despair we've cultivated through a war campaign, and crank this up to an 11. I'm like, there we go. That's a different take.
Yeah, no, it's very original, and it goes back to, like, as you kind of brought up, it's foreign, so it's interesting, but it is like even as someone who, like, I took some Japanese in college, and I've watched anime, like, it's not completely foreign, but it's still cool to see because we don't get games like this. We don't get games in Japan. How many, besides like Nobunaga's Ambition game, like how many games are about that? Besides Dynasty Warriors, how many games? And this is the same, Koei.
Talking about Koei seems to be the only big
only
studio
one
that kind of focuses on this stuff. And it's also why I don't like whenever certain people kind of decry the Dynasty Warriors and the Samurai Warriors games that get published, because they just look at the gameplay and think, oh, it's so simple. I'm like, yeah, but do you know any other game out there that mashes together, romanticized ideas of the Chinese Romance of the Three Kingdoms with hair metal? I mean,
yeah, it's definitely unique.
I'm glad they exist. I'm glad they work with that.
Yes.
So I mentioned before that I did review Nioh for thegamefanatics.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we could talk a bit about that.
I guess we should review the game a little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And first things first, though, I really want to put my line in the sand by saying, I mean, we've done this multiple times already throughout the stream. Calling Nioh similar to From Software's Soulsborne games is not a criticism. It is not. It is nowhere near a problem. The problem I find is that if you take ideas from a game or a genre or even a subgenre, let's face it, Souls-likes are based on their own subgenre now. There's so many imitators and remixes of it.
Yeah.
My problem is if you do something with it, bring something new to the table. Bring something different. Bring something that makes your game stand out.
And be unique and different from the other ones. And the thing with Nioh is they brought like several layers. They didn't just change a little bit of the combat. I mean, just to do like an exhaustive list, they had 3 stances for each weapon. They had completely different weapon styles. They made it way faster. They changed how stamina works. They added in skill trees for every weapon and for ninjutsu and all that. They added titles and stuff, which are like little challenges you can do to unlock further minor boosts. Like they really added a lot of stuff onto the Souls formula. It's not just a copy paste.
They went numbers heavy with it, and
yes. Oh God.
Oh my gosh! It's number prawn.
There's numbers everywhere.
All the numbers.
It's funny, like, if you go to like your character screen and you like press R2 a bunch of times, it's just like, here's 60 different stats if you want to look at them. Like, okay.
And I will admit that that's actually a problem I actually did have with the game, believe it or not. Like, this is close to a criticism I actually did have towards Nioh. Like, this is gonna sound so bizarre. Like the storytelling is more conventional. It has a much more conventional level structure. It's go, kill monsters, get to the boss, kill it, cutscene. That's fine. That's a workaday formula. That is perfectly content. I have no problem with that. They have a world map like Mario Brothers 3 or whatever with little side missions and hard mode versions of other missions. I'm like, I'm fine with this. This is cool. I'm
Hmm.
down. But then I get to the progression and get to the loot and the weapon systems, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there is just way too much perks, way too many
Yeah.
things to balance. Like it reminds me of why I never really could get into stuff like Diablo or like dungeon crawlers like that, where they just they just spew loot at you non-stop. Like,
It
okay,
is.
what's it? Oh yeah, like seriously, like what's this thing? It does 50 more damage in the sword. Yeah. Also, it has a plus 5% bonus to this enemy, a plus 6% bonus to this thing, minus 4% to
Yeah.
stamina regen,
Yeah.
but also has
Right.
but also has a C plus grade rating to familiarity rating based on a formula based off of 3 of your stats divided by the average of
Yeah, yeah. It's
stop.
not it's not like, oh, I got the iron sword and I got the iron sword +1. It's like, oh, iron sword +1. This one does fire damage. That one doesn't. This one does stamina regen. This one does that. This one does this. Oh, this raises your equipment rate, which does this. And you're like, okay. At a certain point, like
Like
early in the game, I just stopped picking things up if they weren't better. If it didn't tell me they were better, I'm not even picking it up. I can't.
for me though, it got even worse though, because at the stats for a while, I did kind of just phase it as white noise, same as you. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, just I
No.
was like base defense, base attack. What stat does it scale with? This good, okay, then stick to that. I mean, I did get to the point where later on I did start utilizing some of the perks I came across with certain specialized armor for the build I was going with, but that was after like 20 hours into the game where I was kind of easing myself into it, because it's way too easy to have to see all of this and have the game feel like it's being needlessly complicated. And here's the thing, it's the difference between being this. It's a strange parlance thing. I always kind of have a problem with certain people. Like there's depth, which is the game is simple on the surface, but it's complex as all get out. Like seriously, people play chess nonstop,
Yeah.
and
Chess is a good
you know,
example of that.
actually not exactly the best example, but whenever I think of chess, people keep thinking you move pieces, but that's a complex game.
Yeah.
That's a complex game. A game that has depth is something like, whew, what in the world can I even think about? Usually deck building games I think about when it comes to that, because it has usually basic rules, but then how they utilize those rules can have a shelf life all its own. Look at Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
And, but
Layers upon layers.
and then there's complicated, which I feel is a problem, where they find a way to make something in the most roundabout way imaginable seem like it's interesting, where they have too many stats. Like seriously, all this number crunching is just in favor of making sure you get hurt less and you hit harder.
Yeah.
That is mostly it for the most part. And the problem is when I start phasing out all this complexity, there's a problem, because it isn't just this Diablo loot system. There's also a blacksmith where you can reforge your weapons and basically scale them up if you want. Like you like this weapon and you like its perks, but there's this other weapon has better stats. Oh, just merge them together, and it'll
Yeah.
cost you a lot of gold, because you also have to manage gold in the game. But you can also make your own weapons, which rolls dice, and then you can soul match one with the other, or you can do all this other stuff that has
But
this. And then
the
you mentioned the title system, where
yes.
congratulations, you killed X amount of Oni. Congratulations, you can choose to get plus 1% bonus health. I'm like,
And
guys.
that gets starts into like grains of sand we're counting. But the like, to the game's credit, you can tune a lot of that out. Like you really don't need to be paying too much attention. If you're good enough, or even if you're just kind of will it, you can just
Yeah,
make it to the game. You don't need to go to the blacksmith. Like I've reforged one thing in all my time. Like I'm not really into it. I don't like spending money in games or in life. So I'm like, nah, I'll just keep what I find. It's cool. And it's gotten
but
me pretty dang far, you know.
that's the issue I do have, though, because there's all
Yeah.
that's gone into this game, and a lot of these players, like you and me, are filtering this out, and I feel as if I can only tell it's not aimed directly at us, but I can't really call it bad design. It's just
Hmm.
that it feels like it doesn't gel well with me personally, because when I think of this sort of stat heavy crunch gameplay, I think of something more tactical, like a turn based RPG, or something more akin to an MMO or the like. But whenever I play it, it feels like I'm playing once again a Souls-like, which rewards skill as well as upkeep of your stuff, and I feel as if it feels like it's pulling me back and forth between two different things.
Yeah, I can get that. Well, there's also the problem to just get off of that and move on to another problem I have with it. And these are problems in the way of like, yeah, they're problems, but I'm still really liking it. The skill trees are just a mess. Like they're
Yeah,
way too complicated with stuff that's not super interesting. And it's like, okay, I guess I'll spend points. I don't know. Like, it's really not a lot going on there.
yeah. Oh yeah, I brought this up as well in my review. I'm like, okay, the initial stuff you get is good, like
Yes.
the bare bones stuff, like the ability to key pulse by
Well,
dodging,
by dodging, yeah, perfect. That's perfect skill.
being able to
End
key
it
pulse by
there.
dodging. The flux mechanic, where you gain even more stamina from your key pulse by switching your stance. So it
Yes.
encouraged you to mix it up. I'm like, that's fine. But then the later stuff, like there is some stuff there that is whoa, but it isn't as simple as actually, yeah, let's clarify quickly, for anybody else that isn't paying attention. But yeah, there are skill trees based off of the various weapons you can learn in the game of
Yeah, for
Nioh.
each weapon. Oh, and
Axes,
also the game
hammers.
doesn't tell you there's passives in each skill trees. You don't have to use that weapon. You can just get the passives. Like you could just go spend points elsewhere on the axe, even if you never use it, and get more life. Like I was like, oh, I didn't even know
But
this. I'm gonna go spend these points now.
but yeah, seriously, every single weapon type, and they even have the ninjutsu and onmyo magic
Mm.
as their own separate thing. And the more and more you become familiar with weapons, or the more and more you use a certain weapon type, you get points, which you can spend into these skill trees. And at first, they're good.
Yeah.
Like my build, my weapons of choice were dual swords and the kusarigama, and because I stuck to those, one for this long reach with this chain, the other for these swords, the more and more points I put into that, the more and more I was able to better myself. I was able to, once again, dash in order to gain health, or gain access to alternative attack types, like being able to end a combo with kicking,
Yeah.
to knock a guy off his feet, or jumping back and throwing the Kusarigama chain out so I can do a strike while also distancing myself, and that's fine. But then I get to some of the other later stuff, and it's really kind of petty. Like I remember actually citing this in the review. I was making a ninjutsu focused build because I loved having access to these ninja tools, these area control ninja tools. But then the later stuff is like, okay, I got 11 points. What can I spend this on? You can blow 10 of those. I'm exaggerating. To to increase my shuriken damage by 6%.
Yeah. And that's not a joke. 6%. Like literally these tiny weird numbers. Like
And the
okay.
pro- and the problem and the biggest issue I have with it though is that when it comes to minuscule percentages and stuff like that, certain games take to that better than others. Like The Witcher 3 has low numbers as well, but that's because it's taking into account every time you strike an enemy with this weapon, not raw damage output, which barely registers. And Witcher 3
Mhm.
is very hack and slashy with how it handles this. But going to Nioh again, shurikens, regular shurikens, I barely use for two good reasons. I only use them in two scenarios. One, to interrupt an enemy during an attack, usually to knock them off their stamina bar so I can go for a kill or something.
Mhm.
Or two, the range, and even then, that's situational at best because I also have a bow and a matchlock rifle that I have plenty of ammo for, and I don't want to use that. And even if I did use shurikens, I'm using poison shurikens or fire shurikens or paralysis shurikens. Yes, there's few of them, but it goes back into the verisimilitude of the setting of this world because, once again, this is my knowledge, shurikens were not used to cause excessive bleeding. They were meant to incapacitate. Ninjas were usually dipped them in poison or paralysis stuff in order to debilitate the enemy. You weren't even supposed to notice you were even hit with one of them until the poison kicked in.
Yeah. It's not the murder weapon in a Clue Well, it would be the murder weapon in Clue, but it's not like a sword. It's not your main focus weapon. Well, so let's talk more about, because you're using all these ninja tools and all that. Oh, what we didn't even mention was the living weapon little summon friend you can get that are different elements, and they have all these different stats you can like affect you as well as another layer.
I did love that, and plus, this is what I was talking about. I like how they took the structure of the Souls-likes and took a test on it. Like, once again, what usually happens in Dark Souls, Salt and Sanctuary, whichever game you're talking about, whenever you die, you lose all your experience gaining material, your salt, your amrita, your souls, your blood echoes, whatever. And you have to go back to a checkpoint, and if you can make it back to where you died before, you can get your stuff back. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. That's a workhorse thing that keeps you interested. Nioh adds a wrinkle to that, where they also have a guardian spirit. You choose one at the beginning of the game. They give you these bonuses. Some give you like passive abilities, like the ability to see traps or see enemies.
Yeah, or just more life or something, like something simple like that.
Or something simple like that.
Yeah.
And whenever you die, your spirit stays behind to basically guard your grave, which I thought was a fun little idea. So you have to go back and get your stuff, but at the same time, the spirit is away from you, so you don't have access to those bonuses. Also, the living weapon mode we mentioned. While the spirit's with you, you basically build up a gauge, and once it gets maxed, you can hit some buttons, and you'll basically go into, I want to call it a super mode, but even then, that's not exactly giving it credit.
Yeah, it's more than a super mode, because if you get hit, it reduces the amount of time you have in the mode. It also has to, it's more powerful, but you still have to be smart about it.
You're basically invulnerable, but your duration goes down.
Yeah.
But you can also extend the duration if you perform key pulses during your combos. Key pulses, I know we've mentioned multiple times before throughout the stream, but I basically equated it to like the quick reload mechanic that the Gears of War games have, where if you hit a button at the right time after a string of attacks, you'll recover a good chunk of your stamina back so you can keep fighting, is the idea behind it. And I did like how they have either while you're in living weapon mode, you don't have a lot of visual affordances you have in order to determine the best time to pulse.
Mm-hmm. You have to know.
You have to play by feel as you go about it, and I like that if you want to extend it. But and here's the thing though, these spirits, if you build yourself right, this living weapon mode can save your bacon in boss battles. I've used it several times, and it was always fun to be able to pull that out when the boss is like at the last little bit of health, and you could finally and you finish him off, and it feels great.
Yeah.
And that's another wrinkle that I do enjoy, and I like how they made you feel even more punished for messing up, but at the same time still giving you the tools needed to come back, because there's also consumables that you can use to recall the spirit or recall your Amrita, but they're limited in a very limited capacity. They give you just enough tools to keep going, but I think we covered all the basics that Nioh covers.
You never feel unprepared because of all these systems. Like, you always you can heal with the elixirs, or you have traps, or you have shurikens, or you can, put fire on your weapon, or you have the living weapon thing you can do. Like, there's all these little tools, and if you're not using all the tools, you're going to have a bad time, South Park. But you can make it through without it if you're crazy, but it gives you enough.
You said South Park.
It's South
Park. I was saying Undertale.
No, you're gonna have a bad time. It's a South Park, whatever. Undertale also good, but let's switch over, because the living weapon's a sidetrack on a sidetrack. You play with these weapons like the ninjutsu, which I haven't invested.
That's it. Damn it.
Yeah, which I haven't invested in at all. I'm basically dual swords.
I'm sorry about that.
What? Oh, you're fine. Okay.
Yeah, you mentioned before your build is a bit more...
I'm not going to say it's like a tank build, because having that is almost impossible with how they do damage values, in terms of, like, if you're not blocking, you're probably...
You're mentioning that your build is a bit more of a beat stick, I guess.
Yeah, beat stick. It's just like, I'm attacking. And even now I have a couple other talismans for health regen, but I'm essentially more akin to, like, the paladin, where I have these heals, but I'm fighting. and that's all I'm doing is fighting and dodging and like mastering when you can block, or like what attacks you block, what attacks you move away from. And that's the whole game, is this little dance with enemies. And that's all Souls is too, but it's a very different dance, and one that requires you to learn more of the move sets. So many times like every enemy is like, oh, he's doing this attack, I'll wait and I'll get around him here. Oh, he's doing this attack, okay, I know exactly what to do. It rewards that, and almost requires it at certain times, that level of like
Patience
studying,
and reaction.
yeah, and patience. A lot of like, I've watched a lot of streams for this game, and the people that get stuck on the first boss right now, I'm seeing them fighting it for like 3 hours, and I'm just like, you don't have patience. You need to watch your enemy and know what they're gonna do, and then you can just go nuts and beat them. Like there's such as a challenge, I tried to play the game as far as I could without leveling up, which is totally doable. And I got through the first 2 levels, and I'm like, all this requires is patience and knowing enemy attacks. Like I'm not special. It was just, I know what they're doing.
Congratulations, Mr. Hardcore. Your medal's in the mail.
I know. I'm expecting it in the mail. I'm going to put it on my fridge. But that's the thing. And I guess we'll get into difficulty later. But
Yeah.
all it requires is patience. Like this, and the same thing is said for Souls. You know, it's just patience and waiting and knowing when to fight. That's all it is.
And it's once again part of our history with the Souls
That's
likes,
true.
and
That's
that and that built-in muscle memory. But yeah, you kind of said you have a sort of more, I guess, combat-oriented build. Then again, everything is combat in some perspective here, but I actually gravitated towards a ninjutsu build, a sort of ninja build, mostly because I wanted to see how well thought out the tools were and the area control was, because this is something I can say about Nioh. It seems to focus a lot more on enemy ambushes and environmental advantages given to more humanoid enemies than traps or stuff like there is, like, I wouldn't say there is a level on par with Sen's Fortress from Dark Souls 1, but there are a few that kind of get there, but that's more late game.
Yeah.
As such, I wanted to have a build that focused more on area control and environmental awareness. I wanted to get away from the more aggressive builds, because that's something that always worries me when it comes to these games, that people they listen too much to the more vocal hardcore fan base, and they make it all about that precise, reflex-focused, patience-oriented gameplay. Dark Souls and the entire Souls-like subgenre would not have gotten nearly as big as it has if the diversity of playstyle was that limited. And the closest thing I could think of when it came to Nioh having a unique selling point with its Japanese flavor is I get to be a flipping ninja fighting monsters, and this is coming from somebody who barely plays any of the Ninja Gaiden games, so the novelty hasn't really worn off on me, so whatever, so sue me. And I was able to kind of develop this ninja build, and I found out that the more ninja-oriented clothing actually has perks on it that runs a chance that if you use ninja tools you've prepared, they will not be consumed.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I did. Yeah, and I started putting more of a build into skill and dexterity, so it became a very fast dodge monkey sort of glass cannon type build, where I'd have these rapid attacks with my dual swords. I'd have my Kusarigama, this chain scythe, for range attacks, and I would coat my blades in poison. I would prepare on hand, and have the Kusarigama wrapped in a paralytic, so I could paralyze my enemies and just rack up the damage, or have those multiple cuts lead up to characters poisoning, so they take damage over time. And if I accidentally overreach, I can back off and drop some Makabishi, some caltrops, to slow them down. Which, you'd be surprised how much miles I've actually gotten out of that, because this is a very aggressive game, and speed and invincibility frames are king when it comes to dodging. The Makabishi, the caltrops, that stuff slows you down, and it basically slows down your invincibility frames. That is dangerous if you know what you're doing, and this does apply to boss battles as well. I have dealt with bosses that have moved way too fast to be even remotely tenable, and I've slowed them down by just pricking their legs or the lower parts of their bodies with these traps. and setting down these ground fire bombs that would, like, if you set two of them next to each other at a time, you will set a character on fire. So you can see, yeah. So you can see the build I'm going for. Just break them down, damage over time, and just tear through them. And and if I have to use range, I have my Kasarigama to keep myself so I can gauge the enemy if it's new, so I can learn their patterns. And it was a lot of fun to use other things as well, like the catwalking scroll, so I could basically sneak up on enemies, do these almost insta-kill backstab attacks. And it was good because, once again, I like bit of a clarity thing. I loved Bloodborne. I played the crud out of Bloodborne. I platinumed Bloodborne. I barely find the time to I don't platinum games. I do not finish 100% the achievements in certain games. I 100% of Bloodborne. I internalize that aggressive, rewarding, give and take, wreck them mindset of Bloodborne. And I'm like, I don't want to go back to that again with Nioh. I want to try this different take, see how much of it goes, because it would have been way too easy for Team Ninja to look blatantly at Dark Souls and Bloodborne and say, okay, you know what? If we just make that faster and make our players even more Twitch hungry, crazy people, we'll have a hit. No, you don't do that. Once again, diversity of play style is important. And that's what I took from my ninjutsu build. I think we have footage of it showing off with.
I showed some of your footage earlier with the little Japanese mansion level. I'll probably switch back to it.
And you didn't bother to tell me. I feel like.
Oh, sorry.
And you didn't bother to tell me. I wasted 10 minutes right there. But if you want a reference for the build I was going for and the style I was going for and the mansion, footage right there in the stream.
I'll play it right now so you can kind of see it, because you're seeing you're seeing some submissions, which is yet another thing they added in, which we actually didn't even talk about, is the level structure. I mean, it's closer to Demon Souls,
I mentioned it in passing.
They're all separate levels. Like, it's very granular. Like, this is this level. They're not intermixed at all, and there's submissions you can go on, which are basically
revisitations of the old.
With different, or there's a few are on their own little maps that you get to know, and then there's Twilight missions, which are harder missions of the main missions, and even submissions. I did a Twilight mission of a side mission yesterday, and I didn't even know that was a thing. I was like, okay, but there's a bunch of other stuff to do, and with this more linear kind of style, it allows you to do things, and I won't spoil anything. But in the mansion level in particular, there is something that happens that could not happen in a Souls game because of how it's revisiting and all that. Like, because this is its own standalone level that you can revisit and reset everything in it, and it's, linear one and done kind of stuff, it allows different things to happen. Different world events can happen and happen again because of this setup.
Oh my gosh. The first time I did the Twilight mission level, when go to Japan and you fight.
You're cutting in and out a little bit.
Sorry about that, but I remember playing the Twilight mission of the first level, the first proper level of Nioh, and I remember being actually kind of harrowed by it. Like, I was very over leveled for it, but I was challenged because they just threw so many new enemy demon types at me. And it was a legitimate challenge, just getting through it slowly.
It's not... The Twilight isn't like, oh, we just gave them more HP. Like, no, there's new enemies, and enemy encounters are completely different. It's 100% different enemy layout.
Different enemy encounters. Not all of the shortcuts are around. Like, this is something I will say that they did a good job of the level design. Finding these environmental shortcuts to mitigate travel. That is very tricky to get right, and they hit a good balance here. But they even have it be that certain shortcuts don't work, or even certain routes are cut off, so you have to go through certain ways, and yet they don't do it in a way that makes it feel like they're just gauntleting the heck out of you. They give you just enough by taking some stuff away. It's maddeningly good design. Like, once again, Team Ninja going from the likes of like Dead or Alive 5 or Yaiba, Ninja Gaiden, whatever. Yeah, we don't talk about those anymore, do we?
Forgot about that.
They go from that, and then they're like, okay, let's sit down, put the coffee on, and remember why people loved us. And they did
Yeah.
this.
Well, another thing too that we've completely forgotten is some of the yokai have these. They exist in these like key pools, and when you approach
Oh,
them, they appear and they're gone. Like
oh
once you defeat
yes.
them, they're gone, and that is a
They're mini
big
bosses.
change. Yeah, they're mini bosses, but there's a ton of them, and it makes traversing something that could be super annoying. Like, oh, I gotta fight that guy again. Like, no, you overcame that. Now you got to do this other part. Like, okay, it's very nice in a lot of ways like that.
And I also do enjoy how the yokai enemies do also reinforce the key pulse gameplay, because
Yes.
this is another thing I do enjoy. Like, you bring a new gimmick or a new idea to a game, you have to internalize that. You can't just let that sit by the wayside, because like this is the thing I did like about Nioh. First things first, there are these abilities that the yokai and the yokai enemies have, where they basically release these pools of, I guess, negative energy,
Yeah,
and
miasma.
as miasma of some kind. But
Yeah.
as long as you're in it, your key, your stamina will not regenerate. But if you perform a perfect key pulse, you will dispel it. Once again, going back to the samurai philosophy, the samurai way of focus, of taking your decisive blows, of being patient, which goes into the Souls-like philosophy of taking your time and not just going crazy. It's reinforcement, and it's a reinforcement, and it's also a selling of the key pulse mechanic, which I
Yeah.
think is great. Then there is as then there was the some of the yokai that, oh crud, I lost my train of thought. This is embarrassing.
No, no. Well, they do a great job of justifying the mechanics and the things they add. Just like with the ninjutsu, it's you can really go balls deep into it. And the same way with the key pulse, like you need to do that. It's not just we added key pulse. Here's a thing if you want. Like this is integrated into every part of the combat, and you don't have to,
Oh,
but you need to.
actually now I do remember what I said though.
Mm.
The fact that stamina management
Yes.
isn't just something you need to worry about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like
That's huge.
yeah,
That is huge.
yeah. Like seriously, like this sounds like, once again, this is a problem. This is something that is worrying. Like, the action gameplay, in some ways people do want to be able to just chain from mid stance to low stance to high stance to mid stance and just do a crazy 33 plus attack combo and just abuse the stamina bar, and that's fine. The problem is you're going to get smacked so hard because these guys have armor. And this is probably the closest thing to, I guess, as the Souls Bros might know, it's closest thing that the game has to a poise mechanic, because they
Hmm.
have it be that every enemy follows a stamina bar. Every human, every Oni, every giant boss monster, whatever. If you're good at chipping away at their stamina by either keeping the pressure up or having them overreach in certain attacks, you hit them when their bar goes low, they are vulnerable. They will not be able to do anything. They will have no armor frames. You can just keep hitting them, and they'll
Yeah.
react to the blows. And it is beyond satisfying to have a boss monster go into the red
And then
and
you,
just
you
wail
just
on them.
wreck shop. Yeah, summon your living weapon at that point and just like, you're dead now. I'm winning this. I overcame you. I got past your little obstacle. And the same can be said for you. Like, they'll mess you up. You run out of stamina and you're probably dead if you get hit. Like, it's
You're
not good news.
Oh, absolutely not. This even happens in the game's kind of asynchronous PvP they have.
Hmm.
I do like this mechanic though. They have it be that enemies do not invade. They don't have the players invade you. It's that their graves are marked
Oh,
in the
yeah.
world, and you can summon a revenant of them, which is basically an NPC controlled version of the player with their build and their items. You kill them, you get some items, some amrita, some experience points, and a sort of glory, which is part of another crazy complex system I'm not going
Online
to get into
thing.
here.
Yeah, another layer we need.
Yet another gosh darn layer, and I always loved being able to have them overreach to the point where they have like no stamina, then hit them with a quick jab with the sword or a shuriken, and then do this visceral execution attack on them with my swords or Kusarigama. This is, like I said before, the fact they brought in stamina management being something that you can exploit and not just manage yourself was a smart call.
Yeah.
So I think we've talked very extensively about how Nioh does so much to differentiate from
All the mechanics.
yeah, all the mechanics, all these elements, all this build up. Were there any levels or enemies you thought didn't fit or didn't?
Oh, that's a
I'm
good
just asking.
that's a good question actually. The only enemy I don't like fighting, and the only one that'll pop up, and I'm like, really, is the eagle guy. I just don't Tengu. Yeah, I don't like fighting them. They don't recoil in the same way as the other guys. I can't dodge them as well. I don't know what it is. They're my weak point in terms of the enemies. Everything else I can kind of get by pretty easily, but them, I just don't like them. And couple them with like another big guy with an axe or something, and like, God, I hate this fight now.
Oh my goodness, that is probably one of the bigger things I will admit Nioh does to my chagrin, I guess you'd say. 1-on-1, you're fine. 2-on-1, fair enough. 3-on-1, you better pay attention. More than that, you're screwed.
Yeah, I mean, depending on, there was this one, it was a Twilight mission. It was the Twilight mission I did of a side mission, so it wasn't even a main mission. But it was one of the Tengus, one of the guys with the tongue, and then I had an archer and a summon visitor guy. All shooting me. I'm like, why is this happening? It was so bad. And it's one of those, I don't know if you've done the side mission, but it has like this underground area, and then it's a large like cavern mountain and the rest of it. But you just walk, and I'm like, okay, someone's being summoned. There's an archer that sees me. I poke my head out a little more. The Tengu sees me. I'm like, this is not going to end well at all. This real bad.
This tastes good.
No, it was real bad. I don't even know if I won that. I think I just retreated, or like I summoned the living weapon like way far away. Like, get the archer guy out of this mix at least, please.
Get out of here. Like, I will say though, some of the boss battles may linger way too much on artificial difficulty, and that might sound like I'm complaining a bit, but there was a boss battle I remember with the creature called the Nioh, the tiger,
lightning tiger, whatever,
the tiger monkey snake monster,
manticore thing, whatever, not manticore, but
yeah, like once again, I am not some casual, as some people in the stream are like probably gonna be calling me or whatever.
Yeah, I'll type it in. Hold on.
Thanks for that. But I am not a casual, so to speak. But I remember the wind-up frames for some of the Nioh's attacks was almost unforgiving. Like the lightning bolts, there's plenty there. You have the particle effects, you have the visuals, and you have the build-up to the striking the lightning with you. But then multiple times, I remember putting stamina down to nothing, doing my crazy combo with my chain scythe, and then I'd get maybe half a second to react before he would just suddenly have a stamina bar back. There'd be a pool right there, and then lightning would hit me 3 times in a row right where I was and instantly kill me.
The lightning, particularly in that fight, is just absurd. And it was in the alpha as well as kind of this ridiculous thing. And I figured it out kind of on accident in the alpha, that you can hide under the like awning or whatever, and the lightning won't strike you. And you're fighting like outside the rain in this little square.
My problem is though is that I couldn't. There was no way in heck I could react to that lightning bolt striking. Like as I said before, there was a build-up. There's like a couple seconds. And the thing is, though, is that you can't even count the hits you get on the Nioh before he does it. It's just whenever he feels like it. And whenever the boss battles get like that, where I am basically dodge rolling and chipping away, I feel as if there's some problems with telegraphing and enemy attack patterns.
A few patterns I would agree with. I think there's a bigger, to me at least, how I've been playing the game. It seems like the bosses do a ton of damage.
Yeah.
But kind of unjustifiably so. Like, I would rather them do less damage so I get and then more health so I get to fight them more and I'm not as punished and I get to enjoy the stages of battle. Because a lot of times, once I figure out the first stage, like the Umibozu, once I figure out the first stage, the second stage is like, oh, now I'm done. And I never had to fight that again until I did the Twilight version, which requires so much like just staying focused and dodging everything and knowing when to do every specific thing that should be required of this optional thing, not the main thing, but it's just the HP of like, or the damage values of some of these things is like that's an insta kill. Like I can't even I can't do
It's
anything against that.
it's not the insta kill I have a problem with. It's
No.
that it's the reaction speed and the truncating of animation buildup that worries me. You know what I mean? Like people keep saying, once again, this goes back to the stigma people have, or the people that the Souls-like community keeps saying, like it's too hard. People keep saying no, it's fair. It gives you just enough information to react and learn. Some of these attacks you really can't learn. Some of these attacks are too fast. They have almost no buildup at all. And
Yeah.
as you said, the damage is whatever. Like, I'm glad you're saying something because by my own admission, my build is kind of a glass cannon. I barely have enough health, but but I have a lot of ki. I have a lot of dodge ability. I have a lot of area control. I don't have to worry about that. I'm looking at the more melee focused people that are basically tanking damage, and they get one shot by some of these attacks. I'm like, how were you able to plan around that?
Yeah, well, like I'm not gonna spoil any other bosses than I guess we've already said, but I just beat the one in the mansion, and that fight came out to be I have to know what attacks to block, and I have to block them, and it cannot go otherwise. And that sounds like really difficult or whatever, but I did a ton of damage to him. Like it wasn't about damage values to him. I can hit him, that's fine. It was I needed to block these things. I can't slip up. That's what the entire like every boss fight to me is you can't slip up. And I just might be that type of player that's very cautious. Like I'm fine with 2-3 hits and back up, whereas other people might get a little more greedy.
Right overreach.
Yeah, and then that's where you run into problems, especially with ki and getting hit by this guy's 3-hit combo. Like I have to block it. I can't dodge it right. I have to block it.
Yes, that happened to me extensively when it came to the Jirogumo boss battle with the Spider Woman.
Yeah.
Because my build focuses on speed and ki management, and she covers the entire arena with webbing that slows me down and stops my regen. There's been so many instances where I was trying to do like 1 or 2 hits, and then she would just like backhand me, and I'd be in the red, and she'd insta kill me. Like,
yeah, I think with that fight in particular, I got somewhat lucky, and I ended up being pretty aggressive. And if you kind of like circle around her, she can't turn and hit you. So I was doing this weird exploit of animation, which I guess just comes from playing too much Souls and knowing like how to abuse the system.
Circle them, hit them in the butt, repeat.
Yeah, that was basically what I did to her. And like, there's been like. And again, I know my medal's in the mail, and I don't need to brag anymore. But there's been several bosses, like even this late in the game, like the Mount Hiei boss, that I beat at my first attempt. Like it's not the frog boss, three attempts on the frog boss.
You flippin' jerk!
And it's
I was stuck on the Mount Hiei boss.
I understand it's like I don't want to be like the game's too easy because I think the game's fine. I just think I understand it. It's just something about it that really clicks with me and how I play. Like, this is how I play Bloodborne and how I play Dark Souls. Like, I'm very much this turtle that waits until, like, the claws come out of the turtle and I kill you. And that's what it is. And I see a lot of these people, if you look at, there's been reviews that talk about, like, it took 8 hours to get to the main menu screen. And I'm like, I know I played the alpha and the beta, but sure shit didn't take me 8 hours to beat the first level. You know, like, I'm cruising through this thing. And I like that. I think it's fine. I think that's fine. I find the difficulty fine. But what do you think? It's too hard? Is it too much? Like, should it do more? Or because like I'm not the normal here.
Yeah, that's something that is very difficult to parse, especially when we're talking about this stuff, because I've mentioned this several times throughout this entire stream. Difficulty is difficult to get right, if you may pardon the horrible wording of that.
Yeah, well,
because you're trying to make a game that's focusing on a subgenre that encourages more out of the players than what most players expect a game to expect of them.
Yeah, it's punishing.
No, I wouldn't say that. Punishing is when you're dealing with bullet sponges that can insta-kill you, and it becomes tedium. Punishing is abuse. Punishing is you cannot react to it, and it was a giant pool out of somewhere dark and unnecessary. It is challenging is everything sticks to the same rules and they also follow them. Like my very first reaction to playing any of these Souls-likes was playing Demon Souls, and I was fighting an undead knight, a sort of more powerful undead knight in the very first level, and I was trying to abuse abuse system. I kept thinking to myself, okay, he's a dumb AI enemy. I'll just hit him a couple times with my sword, back away, and eventually I'll get out of his aggro range. He'll go back to where he was, and I can go back and hit him some more.
Sure. I know exactly what you're talking about, too.
And what happens? He goes back, and then he takes out a healing item and started eating it and got his health back. And I remember that being my first, oh, come the flip on reaction. They also have healing items, and from there, that's where it clicked for me. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, like, oh, we're equals here in this world.
Yeah. And from there, it was like, okay, I'm not some special, God child that's here to save the world. We've mentioned this before.
Kratos.
You are just a guy in this setting, and everything else follows the same rules as you. If they have healing items, they will heal. If you attack them, they will come after you, and they will keep pursuing you. And for some people, they don't like being outsmarted. Some people don't like the tables turning on them, and they find it to be a way that turns them off. Like, I actually have a story. There's actually a friend of mine who got a buddy of his to play the beginning of Undertale. I know we're getting a bit on a tangent here, but the guy got to the first encounter in the game where you encounter basically a boss encounter, and he wound up he didn't realize there was a mercy option, and he wound up killing the boss. And of course, this is Undertale we're talking about, so he felt really bad about it because that's what Undertale does to you. Then he reloaded the save, found the mercy option, got through the boss battle, and then a character recognized that he reloaded a prior save, and actually, yeah, I know you actually killed this person the first time around. You're a monster. And he's like, I'm done.
It's too much.
I can't put up with this. And I think that's the key to why the subgenre of RPGs become so popular to more seasoned players, because it is actively expecting a level of literacy from the players, from their install base, from their fan base, that they expect you to be versed. Like this is War and Peace compared to most RPGs that can feel like, I don't know, a scholastic young kid series. Like, I know that sounds very derogatory. It sounds very derogatory, but I'm talking about in terms of complexity and what it expects out.
Yeah, what it expects from its players is way more than even like a similar game, even like a Bayonetta or something. It's completely different, and Bayonetta will punish you. So it might not even be a good example, but maybe like Dragon Age Inquisition, which is like impossible to say. You can die and you can have difficult fights, but it's a completely different requirement and skill set, or like The Witcher or something like that. Like, it's not even the same.
And for the record, I'm talking specifically about game mechanic literacy, which is different from complexity of storytelling that happens. Like The Witcher 3's combat, it's kind of simple once you kind of strip away all the buffs and stuff you can do with it, with the mutagens and the poisons and the potions.
The basic gameplay of it is pretty straightforward.
Although the storytelling and the narrative delivery is some of the most mature and well-written I've experienced in gaming, period, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I'm talking specifically about mechanics literacy, which is sadly something that a whole lot of games don't do a whole lot. They don't expect their players to understand mechanics as a metaphor for something, or looking deeper into it. They just expect something that's serviceable, that works, and that helps them release some stress. And from there, I think that's why when people keep saying a game is hard in these kinds of Souls-likes, they're not thinking difficult from a punishing perspective. They think, oh, this treats me like a seasoned veteran. It doesn't patronize to me. And I feel that is the partial secret as to why this has become so popular, aside from the more challenge-oriented, focused subgroup of the community. Which, by the way, I love them to death. I love the Dark Souls. I love the Dark Souls games. I shout out to the YouTubers Iron Pineapple for your troll videos using Dark Souls. You're fun. VaatiVidya, the lore hounders, VaatiVidya, epic name, bro. I love the community that's been coming out of this. But when your reaction to trying to get a person to play a Souls-like, and your only reaction is "get good," why aren't you paying attention? There's a very good chance they may not be nearly as versed as you are with this literacy. Like, I think we've shown the footage several times, me going through the mansion level. That ends with me falling through a trapdoor and dying.
Yeah. Which to a lot of people playing, it would be like, fuck this. I don't want to, like, this game's stupid. And it's just, we've become accustomed to it, obviously, but it is something...
Exactly. Like, that ends with me dying, and my reaction was, there's a trapdoor there. I guess I'll have to avoid that next time. Yeah. And to everybody else, though, it looked like I went through heck and back. Like, up to that point, it's like something out of an action movie. I'm fighting multiple ninjas. I had that fight against that demon. I'm doing all this crazy stuff. And then, trapdoor, boom,
and then I died because I fell in a hole? Like, oh, this game is stupid.
It's like, oh my god, that's so cheap. But once again, if I actually went back to that level, there actually is a different coloration to the tiles where you fall through.
Yep.
And that's the trick. That's the trick, is the game gives you enough information to be okay with it, that you learn and adapt. And that's the secret. The secret is making sure the player is versed in it, and it's also the bigger secret is expecting that not everybody's going to play your game. And on the one hand, I do wish more players would be more exposed to sort of stuff. This is actually why I am okay with Souls-likes possibly having different, more easier difficulty levels down the road. I'm being serious here. I would be completely fine with this. My issue comes when the gameplay itself tries to dilute itself to reach a broader audience, which Dark Souls 2 did. And I find that to be probably the weakest installment ever out of the entire Soulsborne franchise.
Probably, yeah. I think that no one's going to dispute Dark Souls 2 is the worst one, but it's like...
That's grading on a curve, though.
Yeah, it's still pretty good.
Yeah. And as I said, I know it's a very heady way of looking at difficulty when it comes to Nioh and how it handles it, but I think there's some truth to it. Like, the only blatant areas where I think, the difficulty went too far into punishing territory is the setup frames for the reactionary attacks by the boss battles. And I feel as if they may have gone a little too number crunch heavy with their Diablo loot and their titles.
Yeah, well, I think the Diablo loot actually could help some people get into it, because Diablo, especially with Diablo 3 on consoles, introduced a whole group of people to this kind of loot gathering mechanic, or even Destiny. Like, the loot is very Destiny as well.
Destiny, Borderlands,
yeah.
The Division.
Yes, even it's one of those things like that could bring people in, because having the same iron sword in Dark Souls for 6 hours isn't as exciting as even finding garbage when you kill a thing. Like, the shiny giblets flying everywhere is nice for people, and I think that goes a long way. I think they kind of, based on the Twitch streams I've watched a couple of people fight that first boss for hours, and I've helped them. I didn't just say get good in the chat. I tried to be helpful. And it was like, oh, this guy eventually beat it, and this other person, he eventually beat it too. I think they messed up in that first boss. I think that first boss might not have been a good choice. I think it might be a little too demanding for some people, because they got through the level, they got through the entire level, and they got stuck on the boss for 3 hours. And I don't know how many people are really going to like that experience. And if you look at the first boss in Dark Souls, it kind of spreads it out a little more, where you're even further hours wise into the game and in terms of land covered. And there's nowhere to go in Nioh. Like, in Dark Souls, you could retreat and go explore a different way and get lost in some other village. You can't.
Because of that open air thing. Nioh does encourage, in some respects, grinding for Amrita,
sure.
and in raising, messing with the systems and the like. But At the same time, I do agree with what you're saying. Because the levels are more linear and the boss is the natural endpoint, it does funnel the player to that. And for some, that could be too big of a jump and whatever. Because going back to the first boss, the level design throughout the first level is humanoid enemies, and not until the
Hmm.
final area or so you deal with Oni. There are these big guys with these big striking attacks.
Yeah.
Then you get to the Onryuki, which is like twice as big as the Oni, and on top of that, he has these large sweeping attacks with these large balls on chains.
Yeah.
That's
And
a
he's
very
completely
it's a very
different
different
attacks.
form of area control. That's a very different
Yeah.
form of area control. And for those large sweeps and the like, it can feel like a change. I mean, there is the escalation, but that
Sure.
change can really mess with you.
It's
Like,
very, if you're not expecting it, it's very I've seen these people. They're not expecting it and they are not prepared, you know?
yeah,
I think going back to like the easy mode, easy difficulty, I don't think I'm not in favor of a mode that's like this is the whole game on easy mode or whatever. But I think we can make a nice compromise in the middle
an
where it's
art,
like where it just
yeah,
says like have you played a Souls game before and you're like no,
yes,
and now the game's a little easier at the first couple levels. You know, it really eases you in with maybe more health, or your stamina's a little quicker to regen at the beginning. Like, it really kind of welcomes you, but still gives you the same content. It doesn't lock anything away, nothing special, but it just eases you in with maybe an enemy. Like, this enemy has less health here because it's a sticking point we noticed in testing. So we'll make him easier just so
oh,
people don't get stuck. Like, smart design
definitely,
decisions like that. Yeah, they could go a really
definitely.
long way.
Of
Yeah.
course, Team Ninja definitely paid attention to the metrics before, and I would be okay with that. Also, I know there are arguments that will be shouting me down, saying that difficulty is part of the world and it's part of the setting of the atmosphere.
Hmm.
And the problem I have with that argument is that, for one, it has certain elitist connotations. Like,
Sure.
you don't want anybody else playing this game
This is for
because
me.
it is for me and my
I
people.
earned it.
We are real gamers. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
please, no, don't do
Well,
that.
that's why the compromise of having the beginning ease you in. You can still have the late game and all that stuff be the same difficulty, but if that player's introduced,
Just because everybody can play a game like
yeah,
Dark Souls
yeah,
doesn't mean it's a bad game. Doesn't mean it's a knock against it. Like, I mentioned this before. Actually, I don't think I have. I enjoy the Dark Souls games, not for the combat and the boss battles, although those are fun. It's the lore. I like seeing how people try to piece together the ongoing workings of the world based off of the environments and these things. Like, I cited Vati, Vidya, and Epic Name Bro. I like seeing how they try to make sense of this world and how hands off from software is with that world building. Like, I freaking loved the Lovecraftian tone of Bloodborne, and
hmm
and how it went, full on Cthulhu Fatagan near the end, and that was a big no, that was a big rug pull, and I freaking
that was
loved it.
cool. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and you wouldn't be able to get that exact same sort of whoa moment if it was in cutscene, and
No, for sure.
that's why I think Nioh is more accessible, because it's doing a more cutscene focused linear introduction and linear narrative design, and that's fine. So even if the difficulty was cranked up or cranked down, you're still getting the same experience. And I argue the same thing would be for Dark Souls. Like, imagine if Dark Souls came out with an easy, normal, hard difficulty, and hard is the standard normal. It
People be
was,
pissed, but yeah.
yeah.
Continue.
People be pissed. Like, imagine in this other world scenario after Demon Souls they did that structure.
Sure.
There would be some people that would still have some elitist connotations, but people a lot more often would either forget about the game entirely because it didn't have a traditional story mode. Like, seriously, if you actually looked at the early reviews of Dark Souls, people were actually critical of it. They actually said
Hmm.
this barely has any story to it. This doesn't make any sense. Then the sequels are like, oh my gosh, I like how it does not have a straightforward story. Critics, ladies and gentlemen.
I
But
know, flip flopping.
but yeah, I mean, pot calling the kettle black, whatever. I'm more consistent though. Read my stuff. I'm reliable. But
Your medal's in the mail.
I would say the community would have a much larger conversation about it, though, because
Sure.
of that. And discussion like that helps us. Discussion like this helps the community. Literacy, widespread literacy of this stuff is always good. It's good for developers. It's good for players. It's good for us. And the more people that can play these kinds of games, I'm fine with. And that
Yeah.
is why I do not attest to these very small subset. By the way, I'm not attacking all you guys. I love you guys as well. Praise the sun. These subset of people that don't want this thing to be bigger than it is.
Well, it kind of has that indie band mentality in a way of like, I was there when Demon Souls came out. You little peasants don't understand what we had to do. Like, it has that same idea.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you played Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin. Oh
I know,
my
that
gosh,
was your first Souls game? Let me tell you. Like, alright.
No.
Well, one of the things these people will bring up about, or that they don't bring up at the difficulty in Souls games is every single Souls game, and maybe a lesser extent to 3, kind of has this late game last third where you are more powerful and you do understand all the mechanics, and it is quote unquote easier than the rest of the game. Like, everything funnels you to that point where you have enough stamina and you have enough HP to survive pretty much everything.
I always like those third act changes though. That's something I do enjoy.
I'm fine with that.
It's like congratulations, you got the tar beaten out of you. It's almost like the joke of a guy teaching a guy karate. He's like, learn karate, throws him to a wall. You don't learn karate, bam, learn karate. And then you repeat that for like 6 hours, and suddenly it turns into a kung fu movie, and it's like, I learned karate. Like, having that sort of changeover where you're being the crap born out of the game that it is beating the crap out of you. I always find that to be very empowering because of it being earned.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is the thing with, and that's kind of like almost a secret. Like, I don't hear a lot of people talking about that with Souls games. Like, the beginning is tough and you're slogging through stuff, especially if you play as like a defiled character class and you don't have anything.
Oh dear me!
Which I love. I love to do.
Oh dear me! Yeah, like I know people that. Okay, I beat the game.
That's how I play.
Souls level 1 with deprived, and I'm like, oh, get over yourself.
Like, yeah, it's a little ridiculous. Or like the weapons in Dark Souls 2, like, oh, you didn't die once, here's a special invisible sword. I'm like, that's not good. Don't encourage this. This is bad.
No,
that's a bad line of thought we're going down. But no, back to the actual point with it. It's like, it's a slog to get there. Like, I'll bring up Demon Souls, which might be the best example of this, because of after you beat the first real boss, you can go to any of the 4 or 5 worlds in any order and kind of do what you want. And it'll be hours between a boss. It'll be hours and hours and hours until you beat another boss. And then somewhere around 5 or 6 bosses beaten, they just start dropping like flies, and it's the late game. And every single Dark Souls does that as well, where it's like a domino towards the end, and you're powerful. Now you understand, you become Neo at the end of the Matrix, and you know everything, and you just go and wreck shop. He knows Kung Fu at the end of the movie. Well, half the movie he knows Kung Fu.
Although we'll say, to Neo's credit, they have a much more consistent difficulty curve. I mean,
yes.
They're much more consistent difficulty curve. Like, I've always been continuously challenged by what they've had, and it's because of that more linear structure that works for them. Mm-hmm. But I think there's not much else we really can say about difficulty, honestly.
I think that's a good point that I haven't seen brought up, and we talked about this a little bit too, I think, in Slack, but the difficulty is super even, to almost to a fault. Like, there aren't sticking points. There isn't a point like in Dark Souls 1, oh, what's that boss? You fight him in a really tiny room with 2 dogs. I forget his name right now. But that boss you can get stuck on forever. There isn't a moment like that to me. It seems very consistent. There's no spikes or anything.
There is no turning of the dynamic like with the Ornstein and Smo fights.
Yes, there was no archers of Anor Londo. Like, there is nothing, like, no sticking points that I've found yet. You know.
And yet I'm content with that. It isn't trying to be Dark Souls, which is amazing, because it takes so much for other things. And I think that's why a lot of people, myself included, are really enjoying Nioh. Like, you can tell when a game is just borrowing ideas that are popular with no real idea as to how they function. They become forgettable. They become slogs. Like, does anybody remember the Bureau? No.
Oh, XCOM?
No, the Bureau,
Oh.
because real time strategy is dead and everything is a shooter. We gotta make everything shooters now.
Mm, mm,
Nobody
mm.
remembers the Bureau anymore. Nobody cares about the Bureau. But it's a real talent to also take stuff and put your own spin on it. Like I mentioned this before actually to somebody. I think it was like one of our articles about guilty pleasures due to it being kind of a lower view period. And for some reason, I kept gravitating myself back to replaying through the Darksiders games, which those
Hmm.
games have almost like no originality to them on a pure mechanical gameplay level. And you had to keep going back to them just because it's actually kind of fun to see how they put certain things together.
Their twist on it.
The Zelda dungeon structure, the hack and
Yeah.
slash God of War combat, the Diablo style loot, the Games Workshop version of the Book of Revelations aesthetic.
The Games Workshop. Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. So let's take a step back from all that. Anyway, do you
Yeah,
think Neo is as hard as Dark Souls, or harder, or easier, or in different ways? Like some people have said that the levels are easier, that the bosses are harder. How do you feel about all that?
I've talked about before during this whole thing, but I would say I am not the best. I'm not the best metric for this because of my ingrained muscle memory and because of my history
Sure.
with Dark Souls and Demon Souls. But in terms, I would say this: if we're gonna be looking at side by side comparisons, let me just talk about for my opinion, the best of the Soulsborne series, the first Dark Souls, and kind of compare it to Nioh and how it does its things. Dark Souls, I think, facilitates more environmental awareness than Nioh.
Hmm.
There are more traps. There's more savvy use of environment with how it uses certain traps and enemy design. Like I could not for the life of me remember certain things. Like there hasn't been an environmental boss like the Ceaseless Discharge in Nioh, where you can't where you can just run away. Like the Umibozu fight does have a thing where you can get an advantage over it by like lighting these lanterns throughout the level. But that's more
Yeah.
of a buff thing. It isn't as dynamic as the Ceaseless Discharge in Dark Souls 1. Dark Souls 1 encourages more environmental awareness and reaction and the like. Nioh focuses more on enemy ambushes. Like there's an underground level where you get attacked by animated statues, and it's in a room full of other statues, and you can't really tell which statues are going to animate or not.
Yeah.
That's ambush tactics. That's what I'm talking about. Well, there are little tells, but that'd be telling. Figure it out for yourself.
Yeah.
But
Right.
yeah, but Dark Souls has more of an environmental advantage to it. But when it comes to boss battles, I'd say Dark Souls' bosses are technically easier because they're a bit more well designed, because they have more build up and setup and more consistency with their patterns and how they react. Whereas Nioh, there's more stuff to balance when dealing with them because the stamina regen, the stamina mechanic. But it keeps feeling like Team Ninja didn't want them to become too easy by having abilities that lets them recover the stamina instantly, so you don't just stun lock them in a corner and just wreck their crap. Having said that, though, they went too far in the other direction by having the punishment be almost impossible to telegraph and react to.
In
And
some respects, yeah.
you mentioned that the damage output's maybe a little too much. I'm not against that
I'm not
because
against it, but I'm just saying I think it could be skewed a little bit.
it can be a little bit skewed. But I would say it's weird. Like I said, the bosses are much more interesting designed because of this Japanese sort of flavor to them, and I like
Hmm.
that. But I think Dark Souls 1's bosses have a bit more texture and familiarity and iconic nature to them because of their more well designed elements and aspects. Whereas Nioh may focus too much on being a reflex heavy challenge. Like probably one of the coolest things I still remember from Dark Souls 1 was Seath the Scaleless, the crystal dragon,
Sure.
and how you had to break a certain item in the room first before you could even damage him. And if you paid attention to the environment and listened to dialogue, you could figure that out before you went in. And there's stuff like that in Nioh, but I would say they don't go far as From Software does with it. And this is me talking strictly in terms of direct one-to-one comparison. Otherwise, they are Coke and Mountain Dew. They are Coke and Dr. Pepper. Same flavor, same idea, different tastes, different focuses. And I think that's the best compliment I can give to Team Ninja and the best praise I can give to Team Ninja for what they have done.
For sure. I think that's a fair way to put it. I think in terms of myself, I would say it's easier. I would say on the whole, it's easier than Souls, but as we've already discussed, I've beaten all the games. I got the Platinum in Bloodborne too. It's the only one I went for.
That exclusive Platinum theme is
pretty cool. And also that has some phenomenal DLC as well. It's great content in that. And so I've played a ton of these games, and I feel like I played all that stuff. Bloodborne was before Dark Souls 3, right? So Dark Souls 3, I feel like I had more trouble with overall.
Really?
Yeah, than Nioh. Nioh, for me, and maybe it was my so much attachment to Bloodborne, that faster feel I really ripped into. And as I said, I am a big Ninja Gaiden or Bayonetta fan as well. It's just kind of the perfect marriage for me. So I would say it's easier than the Souls games. But at this point, what does that even mean? Because like you said, we're kind of not qualified to even rank them at this point. How can you say that? Like it's like learning a new language. It's like, well, I know it already. I don't need to learn it. I know what it's trying to tell me. And that was kind of the whole point with playing so much of the alpha and the beta. I played so much of this game, like I'm cruising through the first levels because I played them 3-4 times. I don't need to. Yep. I fought this boss. See ya.
Yeah. The minute I got to the first. Done.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny too because like the first level's in the alpha and the beta, and then the second level's in the beta, and the third level was also in the alpha, most of it. It's like, all right, guys, like I've seen all this stuff. I didn't realize it was gonna be the whole first 10 hours of the game was stuff I did. But that's like, I can't be mad at it for that. Like, of course, it's my fault. That's my fault for doing that. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I think at the end of the day, I think they're on the right path with difficulty. And I think there's a way we can kind of bridge the gap and learn and be more inclusive and not just be the get good. Even if that's just like playing a game in an online mode where Sunbros come and help you more often, just because you want it, just because you want more help. And they've kind of done that with Covenants in Dark Souls as well. But
I like how they brought something similar to that with the faction system that you unlock later on in Nioh.
Overly complicated, but yes.
Yeah.
Good lord, I didn't even bother. I was like, that's too many things. Let me just pick one and get out of here. I don't even know. I'm not. I don't want to Google.
There was a faction. There was a faction there basically for ninja builds. And I'm like, done. This is mine.
Yeah, there was one that was like, oh, this does your stamina stat, or one of the stats is like, this increases your attack as well now. And I'm like, I'll pick that one. Raw damage, please. Yes. I would like that one. I don't even know if that. I guess that is ever like all time. I don't even know. Like it's very vague to me if that's always happening or is that only when in some online. I don't even care. Like just give me a buff. I don't know. I'm not gonna Google. I'm playing a game.
Give it some time. Give it some time. I'm pretty sure the Souls community is gonna tuck into this thing and make us
figure it out. Yeah. Give me the encyclopedia when it's done, and I'll just keep trucking along. I'll get back to it. That's how I feel about a lot of these things. But they have done a good way. I mean, the intro up to that first boss, I think, is a fantastic way to get new people into it. And you'll know after the first couple hours, even those people I watched that were struggling, they were like, I keep playing this game. Like, I don't know what it is. I keep playing. So they were still trying. And that's nice to see. If there's one
thing that Nioh does really well, it's keeping you on the hamster wheel, so to speak.
Yeah. It's got that nice, like, you just, one more bite of cake over here. Like, one more. Let me fight for it. Like, let me get it. Let me get that feeling. That's what Souls did the entire time too.
Great. Now you just remind me of my favorite like webcomic ever to people that were fans of Dark Souls, and it still cracks me up. It's like how regular games treat their players, and it's like a little kid, little baby and like a chair. It's like here comes the airplane. It's It's like how Dark Souls treats its players. It's this evil Dark Knight with like spiky armor, looking at this kid's like, "Are you hungry?" Yes. He throws the baby a sword. Come and get it.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Exaggeration, of course. It's comedy. You know, I'm not condoning that.
Yeah, it's not that. Like anyone, it
Giving
shouldn't
baby
be scared.
swords. What kind of monster you
Well,
think
you
I
shouldn't do
am?
that either. But you shouldn't be scared to try these games. It's certainly, it might seem insurmountable, but it's definitely achievable.
The atmosphere and tone of the Soulsborne series is definitely hard tinged. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But the challenge and the difficulty curve alone shouldn't be what deters you. Like I know people that actually couldn't get into it because they didn't like the controls or they didn't like how the camera worked, and I'm like, that's fair. That's fine.
Yeah, those are reasonable complaints.
Yeah,
fine with that.
I mean, it's not terrible, but I do have people that do have certain preferences, and that's fine. So I don't think there's much else really to discuss about Nioh. Really, we've been here a while.
I think we've been here quite sufficiently. I think the game's phenomenal. I think we can both say that it's a great game.
It was a very pleasant surprise, and as a writer for the Game Fanatics and as a kind of independent freelance critic, I love games like this. It's these pleasant surprises that I live for this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say it was a surprise, man. I've been all over this game's ass for like a year. I've been
cheerleading this thing too.
But like Nioh, like every chance, like Nioh, don't forget about Nioh. And to me, this year is phenomenal. Like I love Resident Evil, got a great one of those. Got a great Souls game, got Zelda coming out, like got Mass Effect. Oh, this is a good year for me. It's kind of incredible, but I think
this is content. This is fine.
This is good, but the house isn't on fire. This is fine.
Yes.
The dog is fine.
Great. I'm actually watching a remix, but instead of it fire, it's like just game cases falling out of the sky.
It's just games, yeah.
Like,
you get
this
is fine. I could deal with the Switch and all this stuff. It's great. All right. Well, thanks Tyler for coming in and hanging out. I mean, this has been probably too in depth for anyone who wants to watch something about Nioh.
To anyone and everyone that stuck around to the end, thanks for putting up with all this. The microwave brain, my apologies, but as I said before, my text review of Nioh is available to read at thegamefanatics.com. Check that out. Also, if you guys are into movies and are kind of in this sort of feel for samurai action, I actually cooperated with Carlos Aval. I think that's his name. Carlos, if you're listening, I apologize. We worked together on an article for it. It's called 5 Samurai Movies You Should Watch While Playing Nioh. And the recommendations may surprise you. There are some classics on there, but there are a few there that I think you may enjoy. That's also at thegamefanatics.com. Also, I also do have my own personal blog that I use for sort of game design rants, kind of like what I just did here with Ben here, and I also am reviewing animated films. I have an ongoing current column for Wednesdays called Animation Deviation. I'm focusing currently on the works of Mamoru Hosoda, the guy behind Wolf Children, The Boy and the Beast, etc. So if you guys like that sort of stuff, please give myself a read and share it around. It's cybertavern.blogspot.com.
All right, I think that's going to do it. I stream every Saturday, Sunday Super Mario Maker on my own channel, twitch.tv/BenReacts, and then on Wednesday I do just whatever the hell I want. I recently started playing through Killer 7 again because it's 2003.
Suda 51 love, I love it.
I fucking love Killer 7, one of my favorite games of all time, bar none.
Nice.
Love that game, and it holds up pretty well as you can expect for an on-rails shooter. With puzzle games, but that's the show every Friday, 3 p.m. Pacific time, twitch.tv/thegamefanatics. Merry Christmas. Thanks again, Tyler. And I think that's going to do it. We're going to watch me shoot this Oni in the face. Well, hold on. Oh, shot him right in the eye. It's one of the Cyclops guys. All right. Goodbye, everyone.
I love doing that to them. Take care.